All right, we are live. Warrior Women in Business, episode 64. If you're still on from episode 63, this is a double header today. And this week, I was really fortunate to go to Citi Field and go to a Red Sox Mets game, courtesy of Citi Field, for a large event that I'm planning for Warrior Women in Business in New York. So I said to myself, I got to have a double header. I'm coming off of a baseball game. So here it is. So for those of you that don't know me and don't know Warrior Women in Business, my name is Jasmine Sandler. I am the founder of Warrior Women in Business, which is a subset of my main agency, JS Media, which is a branding and digital marketing agency since 2006, with the mission of providing concierge level of services to executives and small and mid-sized businesses. We've been doing that forever. And I started Warrior Women in Business as a podcast. It's grown into an event series, a conference, and it's very mission driven. The purpose is to bring in female leaders. I handpick them. They're women that I, on my own, really respect, and they're role models to me. I found today's guest on LinkedIn, right? And I reached out to her. I was like, oh my God, I want you on my podcast. Because I like to bring in leaders across industry, from executives, corporate, entrepreneurial, and the arts is very important, as well as what we're going to talk about today, which is disability inclusion, extremely important to me, to share not only their stories personally, but also their resources and how they can help people, and advice and action and all those good things. So Warrior Women in Business, you can find out more about us in social media, warriorwomeninbusiness.com, the events we have coming up. Just a quick note on a couple of things that happened recently, and then I'm going to get right into the podcast. Recently, I had some powerhouse guests on, very lucky person, including Kim Davis, who's a senior VP of social impact, diversity, and inclusion at the National Hockey League. And she talked about how they're embracing more from farm leagues all the way up to the audience, how they're embracing multicultural and women across the league. It's really cool. And then also I had Julie Rome, former CMO of Ford, on the show. I've had just the most amazing people. But last week I was in Arlington, Virginia, getting a private tour of the Women's Military Memorial. The Women's Military Memorial shares the stories of over 3 million women that have served in the military, and those obviously in active duty today since the Revolutionary War. My podcast guest, 58, Phyllis Wilson, is the president of the memorial, and Warrior Women has designed a specific Warrior Women in Military t-shirt that's on sale on our website, all of our websites. And we're raising money to help them through renovation, through telling these stories, because it all costs money for staff. So you guys can check out that. But let's get to today's guest, Debra Ruh, who to me embodies everything that I've just been talking about by myself for the last couple of years, about the importance of disability inclusion. It's a very important thing, not just in theory. I think the practicality of it, Debra, is what I want to really dive into today. And I want to dive into what you do, what you've done. So Debra Ruh runs, I'm just going to say hello, and I'm going to run right into your bio.
And thank you for having me on, Jasmine. I'm really honored to be on. I really like women that support other women. So kudos to you and all of your women guests too.
Yes, well, thank you. I mean, you're included. So let's talk about Debra a little bit. I'm just going to give the best I can do on the bio, and then we're going to jump right in. So she's a global advocate, and Warrior Women in Business is global. Another reason I picked you. Global advocate for disability inclusion because it is a global issue. An accomplished entrepreneur and a thought leader in accessible technology. I'd love for you to talk about this today. As the co-founder and CEO of Billion Strong, she spearheads efforts to unite and empower the global disability community. And as I mentioned on my last podcast, one of my previous guests is now the president of Ramped. I don't know if you know Ramped, Debra.
Yes, great organization.
And I'm a singer, but she's a Grammy Award winner. I'm not yet. I had her sing on the podcast. She's so cool. So I'm all about, I think it's just so great when the organizations support each other. So Debra is doing that, and she's aiming to foster pride and inclusion in disability. And again, like when they have these disability months or these women months, that's not me. I'm like, this is not a theme. This is reality. So I'm so happy you're on. We're going to talk about this. With over 2 decades of experience, Deborah has consulted with corporate brands, government, and nonprofit organizations worldwide, advocating for sustainable practices that prioritize accessibility and inclusion. There's a lot more here. We're going to get into it today. I just wanted to read the first paragraph because it's so powerful. And again, Deborah, thank you for being on. I know we're all super busy. I want to bring disability inclusion to the forefront in
Thank you.
everything I personally do. And, you're a global leader in the space right now, but the question begs, right? Like, why are you doing this? How did you get here? And like, did you have any role models along the way, whether they were those in disability or those in business? Like, talk about that a little bit.
Well, I will start with talking about, I was in the banking industry. I was in the banking industry for 25 years, and
Wow.
I did good in the banking industry. I got to executive level, and um, during that time, I also became a mother. And when I was 28, I had my first child, a daughter, and then when I was 30, my son was born. But when my daughter was born, she was born with Down syndrome, and I at the time thought, I really did think I'd never met anybody with a disability. I did not know what to think about this. I did know a few things though, like I had other girlfriends that also were having babies, and there was this one girl that had a baby just a couple of days before me, and everybody was gushing about her baby, but when they responded to me, everybody was sad for me, and that broke my heart because
Yeah,
you know what?
oh,
My baby girl was perfect, and she
that's
still
right.
just
Yeah,
like my son was perfect. So
right.
I was introduced very quickly to what really no, what and so
Yeah, why? Mhm.
yeah. And I also learned along the way that I had married a man, and that I was fortunate to be married to for 40 years. I'm gonna be cool and not lose this here, but
Mhm.
he I did not realize he had a disability, because when he was 11, he got hit by a car in Buffalo, Virginia, as he got his kite going, and unfortunately the driver had been drinking at 10:30 in the morning and didn't stop. Killed him on the spot, but they brought him back, yay. And he was
Wow.
in a coma for 10 days. He didn't go to school for months, just to let you know the seriousness of it. And but he grew up, he got married, he to a wonderful woman. We had 2 children, but dementia came early for him, because unfortunately, when your brain is traumatized that bad, it can do these wonderful things and rewire, but it unfortunately gave him a shorter life. And
Mm.
I was blessed to be with this man for as long as I was. So,
Oh.
but also, guess what? I have a disability. Oh, I didn't know that. I just thought I was quirky, but I actually neurodiverse, and I have
That's hilarious.
ADHD. I didn't know that. I got diagnosed in my mid-50s. All right, and by the way, very common for women not to know, more and more. Um, and so I had no idea I was actually surrounded by disabilities, but I didn't realize it. And so I would say the number one thing that my work focuses on is, I'm just really getting tired of society treating people with disabilities like something's wrong with them. People with disabilities are people.
Amen.
Disabilities is such a normal part of being human. If
Mhm.
you live long enough, you will experience disabilities. Probably you'll experience it really fast. You probably have somebody you love. You might yourself might have a disability. I mean, we are all impacted by this. And yet we make it a thing that we talk about afterwards. I just think it's ridiculous. We know how to make technology fully accessible. We know how to include people. We know how to do this before we didn't know. We know now, but it's just many people don't have the will to do the right thing, I believe. So, not to be, but it's like we know how to do it. It's just, why wouldn't we do it? So anyway, that's where I am right now. And I think it's important. One more thing, Jasmine. When I created Billion Dash Strong, I have a for-profit, Ruh Global Enterprises, a for-profit think tank where we work with governments and big corporations to really make sure that everybody can be included. And we make sure that AI is accessible. We want to make sure the metaverse is accessible. This is not just little things. Completely, society must be accessible. All of digital, all of the built barriers. this is ridiculous to not design things for all humans to use. I mean, it'll make you crazy. Sorry. So,
I agree with you.
I felt if we could come together, if I could somehow, this ridiculous, bring together 1 billion people, come on, with pride. I think we could be heard in a different way, because I think that what happens right now, people with disability, even you were saying it, Jasmine, we've got to care about this. I think everybody cares in so many ways, but people are maybe not sure what to do. But the reality is, it is time for all humans to be included in technology. With AI, with digital, we need to make sure that every human being, no matter even if they're using a tool like a wheelchair or a cane, or they can't step up, every human being should be included meaningfully in everything: employment, education, transportation, housing, the world. But don't get me started, Jasmine.
No, listen, I couldn't agree. I could not agree with you more. So let's talk about employment and careers and running a business with a disability. I wrote a LinkedIn article on this, and
Cool.
well, I had an accident. It's a long story, but
You should share that with me, because I have a very big network, and I
I
think we
will.
also need to share each other's work.
We do. The reason I wrote that article is I have a disability, but I wrote that article because after the accident, did a lot of research, as much as I could, on employment with a disability. And it was like the saddest
Yes.
stats, the
Yes, it is.
saddest videos
Yes, it
that
is.
I've ever seen. And I said, I have to do something about this.
Right.
I can't do it alone at all. So I just wrote an article. I had a lot of positive response. It's nice, but I'm a warrior woman. I want to see action.
Right.
So, talk to us a little bit about, for those that are disabled and are having a tough time getting a job, filling out a job form, getting to an interview, competing because the employer hears they have a disability and they're like, well, no,
Right.
talk to us a little bit about maybe resources or organizations or ways that can support people with disabilities that are looking for employment and they want to advance their careers.
Well, I'm going to answer the question probably not in a good way, but there's the resources. There's tons and tons and tons of resources. But I would say, the resources sometimes are misleading too, because we don't really see employers actually, always meaningfully including this community. I just want to say that it's not that people aren't trying. I appreciate all efforts,
Right, of course.
but it just always feels like an after fact, oh yeah, oh, by the way.
Yeah.
And we've done a good job in the United States in a lot of ways, and the United Kingdom. There's countries that have made some efforts, but it feels to me like and I'm sure your audience will agree, we're still at 101. We are doing the basics and we're doing them crappy. And there's even this thing of that, should we even identify that we have a disability?
Right.
Because people are just going to assume we're broken, right? I mean, like they responded
right.
to my daughter being born with Down syndrome, instead of saying, well, what? I mean, some people got it, but a lot of people didn't get it. And so I think that, honestly, I could tell you tons of resources. There's some wonderful resources. I'll give you a good resource. AskJan.org. AskJan.org. It's a wonderful resource. Now, JAN stands for Job Accommodation Network, and it is a state-run it is a federally run program for all of the states, and it's free. And so if you're a person with a disability and maybe you're not sure how to navigate the accommodations you might need as a person with a disability. Not all people with disabilities need accommodations, but I'll give you an example. An accommodation could be that I'm blind, and so it would be real helpful if I could have screen reader technology so that I could actually work. There are tools that sometimes we need. We can come with it. There's so many different ways that we can accommodate people. But also it's important to understand one thing I'm proud about us in the United States is 1 in 4 adults in the United States. Gosh, this is dated too. This is like 2000, maybe, gosh, 2011, this statistic is 1 in 4 American adults identified as having a disability. 1 in 4.
That's crazy.
according to according to AARP, which we all join when we're 55, 67% of their members have disabilities. We are aging societies all over the
That's
world.
right, yes.
We are losing our eyesight. We're losing, I mean, it's just part of life. Once again, why would you not want to make your technology fully accessible to me? Maybe you're not leaving me out, banks, but remember the baby boomers we still have 60% of the wealth.
Of
And
course.
we can't use your products. They get mad because the old people go into the banks. People go into the banks because your technology is not accessible to us.
They
So,
need to, yes.
yes, you have no choice. And so there's actually a lot happening that your viewers with disabilities could do. But please don't do it the same old way that we've all been trying to do it, going to your, hoping that, your state rehab departments are going to help. And they will help. They are really helpful to people like my daughter, but what you need to do if you are a person with a disability looking for a job right now, what I would do is, first of all, understand that in some ways that disability is an advantage to you right now, because we in the global community and the national communities are really fighting these employers. And we're saying, we are sick of you not including us. You better include us. You better
Yep.
tell us you're include us. And
Yep.
so, for example, there's the valuable 500 global corporations that got together with the World Economic Forum and committed to hiring people with disabilities.
Oh,
Okay.
wow.
Find out who those companies are and apply with them and say, oh,
What
I
is
see
that called
the
again?
value. It's called the Valuable 500.
All right, we'll include that in the show notes. That's interesting. I didn't know anything about that.
Right. Well, most people don't. And
Hmm.
so join us at billion-strong.org. It is a pride organization similar to what the LGBTQIA plus did. Now,
Yeah.
it's not
Yeah.
perfect. They still have huge fights on their hands, but they figured out as they came together, all those different people came together. They were
Right.
stronger. Maybe you could get marriage equality in the United States. Woohoo, you did.
Right.
I
And they
hope
did
we all
it.
keep it. I hope we keep it, right? But
Yeah.
so we could take a page from the LGBT community and other diverse communities, because we are the largest community in the world other than the minority community of women, which is ridiculous there.
It's not, yeah.
Started. Oh, don't get me started there. But anyway, and
No,
also,
this is really great information. And I feel like
gotta
we're
look
just,
at it differently. Gotta now look at it differently, Jasmine.
yeah, I love that you're talking about looking at it differently instead of, and I like that you use the word hope. Hope doesn't work.
It doesn't. It doesn't.
It doesn't work. It doesn't work.
No.
It's
It just
again, action,
discourages
action.
us.
And I love
Yeah.
that you're putting things in action, looking at things differently, providing the resources. So Rue Global and Billion Strong.
Billions.
So you're providing what? You're providing resources, education. Are you providing events? Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, what we're doing at Rue Global is, I'll talk about Rue Global and then Billion Strong, because Rue Global, my for-profit, is funding the nonprofit, as you would expect.
Yes.
Identity organizations are very hard to fund. If anybody wants to help fund, we would love to, because we're going to do it whether anybody helps us or not,
Yeah.
So, but what I like about what we do, I have been in this field now since 2000. And what we do is we work with the largest efforts. For example, there are a lot of corporations and governments that are trying to implement the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs. And to really implement something like the Sustainable Development Goals is a huge thing. You have to make sure all of the cities are smart. Well, cities aren't smart if, for example, they don't have wayfinding and people with disabilities can't get around by themselves, if they don't have accessible transportation, if their taxis can't stop and pick me up if I'm in a wheelchair, Ubers aren't available. So we take it from we go into the largest gigantic projects and we're like, all right, great. I love that you're rebuilding your healthcare, but is your healthcare fully accessible to people with disabilities and people aging into disabilities? And by the way, if we're in the hospital, at least we're having temporary disabilities. My community also, you can have temporary disabilities. You can be temporarily disabled. You can move in and out of this. It's once again means you're human. So we're tackling at, like, we are working with the metaverse, with the groups in the metaverse, or we're talking about AI for good and for all. So we're
Right.
getting into the biggest of the conversations. Like we're doing a lot of talk right now in the Middle East with the UAE, the United Arab Emirates, and other countries over there that are really trying to be more innovative. They want to be inclusive, and they want to learn from what we've done here in the United States and the UK and others. And so we go into society. I mean, you know, how can you talk about employing people with disabilities without talking about artificial intelligence? Because
Yeah,
artificial AI is going to take away so many of the jobs that we have.
it
It
definitely is.
almost tried to take away for a minute there a lot of the marketing and stuff that y'all do, right? So for a minute, we thought, thank goodness it was a minute, I saw a lot of marketing people get laid off. Content developers go away. Oh, we don't need you anymore. We'll just do it with AI. Of course, we all immediately knew you were doing it with AI. We immediately knew that you were creating art with AI because it's obvious to us. And by the way,
Agreed on that one.
there's something
Yes,
beautiful
it's
about the way our
obvious.
brains work. Right. Yeah, we knew. And so that started reversing. But
Mm,
the greatest advice I could give is, first of all, join groups that are trying to make a difference, like billion-strong.org. It is a free movement. Join us, have your voices be heard. Talk about your life experiences. Use our hashtag, We Are Billion Strong, WEARE Billion Strong, because we're over a billion strong. What if we got together and we hired each other? We invested each other.
that's right.
Yeah.
I know there's an organization, I can't think of the name of it, in New York. I've been trying to hire somebody. I can't remember the name of it, but it's like near 14th Street, and they have an
Well, let me know if you
organization.
need help. I know so many
I
talented
do need
people with
help.
disability,
I
and we're not an
100% want to
employment
do that. I
agency.
think that we need to hire disabled workers. Again, going back to my research, I
I
was like, these
agree.
people are so
I agree.
resourceful, so
Yes.
much experience, and
Problem
if
solvers.
they just had the accessibility, that's all they
Right.
need.
And you know, it isn't that hard to make things accessible. It's really not. And a lot of people with disabilities, they know what they need. If you just give them a little
Of
voice,
course.
they'll tell you exactly what they need. Or you can also go to places like askjan.org and it'll tell you what they need. You know,
Yeah.
it'll tell you how to prepare yourself to make sure that you can do an inclusive interview. How do you interview somebody that's deaf, for example, if you don't know sign language? What do I even do?
That is
Right. And so
so true.
there's so many wonderful tips, and we have a lot of tips and information and interviews on the work that we're doing. But I'm encouraging people to use this hashtag We Are Billion Strong and to tell the stories, their stories. Vendors come to me all the time. Oh, I can do this for people with I can do that. Great, go and talk about it. Use the hashtag. Let's all support each other.
Yeah.
Disability doesn't know any economics. I mean, disabilities runs all the way through society because it's part of being human. It's
Yes.
not that people are broken. I mean, and so we get into it really deeply into the major problems. How do you know, gaming. People with disabilities are gamers. As a matter of fact, we've had a lot of success in the gaming industry because the younger people get it. The younger people, when I'm like, what? I don't understand why you're leaving people out. They're like, we don't either. And they take it as a challenge. How innovative can you be? How
Yeah.
innovative can you be? Because it's not that hard to be
Look, yeah,
accessible.
it's to me, it's like very synonymous with being an entrepreneur.
It is.
It
And do
is.
you
It's
know,
exactly what it is. I think the disabled people make the best business owners because you
and
have to do so much with nothing.
right.
And you have to find ways to be resourceful, and accessibility is the key. So we only have a couple of minutes left. I feel like this is going to be a double header. We're going to have to do part 2 of this because I know we have to end at 5 today.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, so first of all of the things that you mentioned, first of all, we're going to put them in the show notes. I feel your passion, and I agree with the billion strong. We're all going to use it. I love that you embrace the stories and the collaboration. It completely aligns with Warrior Women, which is about collaboration because you
Right.
cannot do it alone. You
Right.
can't. So
And women
I'm just
must
going to
support
roll.
women.
What's
Women
that?
must, women have to support women during this. And can I say one more thing, Jasmine? Do you know that 65% of entrepreneurs have disabilities? ADHD or
See, all
dyslexia.
these stats you're throwing at me that I didn't know. I didn't do thorough enough
I
research.
am telling you,
No, but
entrepreneurs are
honestly, that's
filled.
incredible.
Yeah, filled with neurodiverse people because a lot of times neurodiverse people like us, we don't like working for other people. I have my idea of how it's going to be. Let's collaborate.
That's right. Okay, so we talked about your organizations just a little bit, billion-strong.org. We're gonna send everybody there, of course.
Oh, thank you.
And what you're doing, I think it's incredible. It's like a minefield of information. More people need to know about it. I think corporations and not just Fortune 500.
I agree. I agree.
Not at all.
Everybody.
Most of my clients are 5, 10, $20 million companies, whatever they are. They're in the S&B range, right?
I agree.
They
Oh,
want to grow, and the disabled community has so much innovation.
right.
So
I agree. And partially why, Jasmine, that people with disabilities are innovative is because they have to be problem solvers, because
yeah,
society from pretty much the day they're born throws so many obstacles at them. And we talk
yeah,
about that a lot on my social media platforms. This ableism, this, oh, you're so cute, stop it, stop it. You're so human. You're so human. But if you can't get in the door this way, you got to be real creative about getting in this way or that way. Don't you want the problem solvers? Don't you want the innovators? That's what our community represents. It really does.
yeah.
And it's the diversity. There's so much value in thinking differently.
Oh, I agree with you. And that's why I think, women also, are the problem solvers, the innovators, and a lot of nothing against men, but in a
Mhm.
lot of cases, especially in entrepreneurism, because just like the disabled community comes up against a lot of obstacles,
Right, right.
right? So I
I
think
agree.
that's really, so I just want to ask you the term warrior women in business, because I asked this of all the guests. I reached out to you really just because I wanted your wealth of information, because I really want to make a change with the disability. And I think we're not. I see it every day.
We're not. We're not.
We're
It's
not. We're
terrible
not
what's
doing it,
happening.
and we can't do it unless we understand. Like you said, I think understanding is half the battle. So with Warrior Women in Business, when I said to you, I'd like you to be on the podcast to talk about disability inclusion for women, what did you think of the term? What do you think it represents?
I love the term warrior women. And I also love women that support other women. I like the hashtag women supporting women. I really think it's so important. I appreciate men that are supporting women, but I love warrior women because I think right now in the times that we're in, we all do have to be warriors. And warriors is not a bad word. I mean, warriors protect, warriors take care of everybody, warriors help societies. And it's just time for women to lead, and it's time for women to join forces because we are strong together. But we must support each other. We must support each other as women because we're also collaborators in ways that men don't understand.
Agreed on that one.
I love men though. And there's so many men that do understand, but
Yeah.
y'all know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, we do. And I find with the Warrior Women events, for example, and other women's events that I go to, you know, the women that approach working with other women, like you mentioned the hashtag, in that way are the ones that inevitably become the leaders.
I agree.
So this podcast, I handpick my guest because I want to really give women out there the opportunity to meet women that have done that, and they can learn from them. And especially what you're doing, because it has, like my last guest from the NHL, right? Such
Yes.
social impact. It's the social impact. And I think women are so social, that we do need to spread the word about disability inclusion. And not just women, but everyone.
I agree.
So, this is really important. So I know we have to end soon. It's a bummer. I think we're gonna have to do a part two. But are there, besides the website, besides the programs, are there any events coming up, or any initiatives coming up, or months coming up that you want to mention that you think are important for people to know about?
Well, I agree with you in that these 1 days or these months, I'm with you. I think that's ridiculous. But October is National Disability Employment Awareness Month. And then in December, it is We Get a Day, the International December 2nd, the International Day of People with Disabilities. So we get that day.
Okay.
And then, of course, every month, almost every month, it's like Autism Month or Down syndrome or, you know, the different groups. We're just such a gigantic community, and we also have mental health. So if you've ever dealt with serious depression or, you know, bipolar, you're part of our community. Or if you have ever had cancer, you're part of our community. If diabetes, you're part of our community. It's amazing who has been thrown into this.
That's really true. Isn't that interesting?
Who isn't? Let's talk about who isn't part of our community. That might be easier. I know. So why are we
It's,
not?
no, it's just so interesting because the natural perception, right,
Is that it's the
of
minority,
disability might fall into 3 or 4 categories. But
right?
if you think about it, it's
my gosh.
anyone that's
Blind, vision impaired,
that's
deaf, hard of
affected,
hearing, mobility.
right?
Right. It's,
Yeah.
I think we've done it wrong, the way we've slammed everybody.
It's like
But
you're
regardless,
reversing it, which is
right. But
awesome.
fine, then put us all together and then we will change society. Because
Wow.
we are we're probably more like 4 billion. Once again, it's easier to say who hasn't been impacted by disability. Let's stop making the word disability a bad word and stop inspirational porn like, oh, you're my hero because you could stop it.
Yeah,
Those
no, that
Paralympics,
really,
yeah, those Paralympics that just happened,
I gotta tell you,
those are crazy. They are just such talk about warrior athletes. They are the best of the best. We should celebrate these humans.
oh, I absolutely love it. I absolutely love it. So we got Billion Strong, Root Global, the initiatives, some of the resources that you mentioned. You know, like I said, we'll probably have a part 2. One thing we do at Warrior Women in Business is, I mentioned up front, I think I did it, today is so busy, about what we're doing with women in the military. We're raising money
Yes.
for the Women's Military
Congratulations.
Memorial through sales of our t-shirt, which is a very cool t-shirt. The Warrior Women in Military tee. But we do events in part because we bring women together, but much bigger than that is we do events to raise awareness and monies for organizations like yours that are doing things that impact society overall. So I think maybe post-show, you and I could talk about some of the things that we have coming up. We have events that we're planning. We are in New York, Beverly Hills, and we want to be global as well. So,
Yes,
you know, I'd
you
love
need
to do something where women, because women are go-getters and women make things happen, period.
Mhm.
So it would be really nice to do an event where women that understand what you're talking about, that's disability is much bigger than we all think
Oh,
of.
yes. Oh, yeah.
That can come together to
There's
help this, and
exciting-
whether it's, like you said, sharing content, which costs nothing.
right.
I mean, that doesn't cost $1.
And hiring each other and investing
hiring
in each
each
other
other.
and funding and collaborating. And it's like, come on, if we know for sure we're at least 1.7 billion. I think it's much bigger because so many countries don't do census. And, you know, there's some really bad things about disability too. There are cultures where people are being killed still. I mean, I'm not even going to go into some of the
My
sad
God.
things, but the reality is we as society, I believe, need to wake up and start honoring all human beings, even the women.
Well, with that being said, we're at time, but I'm sure you'll all meet Deborah. I'm going to invite her to be 100% a speaker at one of our events. I mean, you're just tremendous. The passion that you bring to a crucially important subject, especially with the world that I am, which is technology. We need to make things accessible and we need to think bigger. At all points, when we're developing the technology, right?
All the way through the life
And
cycle.
when we're executing or implementing the technology. So with all that being said, we're at the end of our double header today, Warrior Women in Business Podcast, episode 64, with Debra Ruh of Billion Strong. And we will put in the show notes after the show is edited, all of your information, any resources you want to provide, any links, any white papers, anything. We want people to understand the importance of getting involved. Again, something like this doesn't take money. It just really takes an interest in supporting the human race. I'm really happy that I invited you to be on this today. We have quite a few things coming up. As I mentioned up front, we are planning a Mother's Day event. So you need to come to this at Citi Field for Mother's Day. And it's going to be really cool, a very cool experience. You might even meet Mrs. Met, which she's so cute. So we have that coming up. We have a plethora of guests coming up that we'll be announcing. My largest announcement is that we have recently partnered with the Women's Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp in Los Angeles, California. Ann Wilson from Heart will be there. I will be there. I'm speaking there. I'm singing there. I'm not the big deal. The big deal is there's some major celebrities that are part of this. Warrior Women is providing to any woman in music that wants to play at major venues in Los Angeles with these legends of rock, these women in rock. We're providing $300 off the registration off the camp. It's in December. The code is Warrior. I'll be providing all the information in the show notes. This literally just happened, and I am so excited because part of our mission is to help female musicians make money. So we're finally doing something. We just had our concert in June with the mayor's office. That went really well. We had 5 bands. They were fantastic. So that's coming up. Look out for our emails, what we have going in social media. It's really easy. Get involved. If you want to get involved with Billion Strong and you have ideas, let us know. We'll funnel it out to Debra. But that being said, please do get involved with Warrior Women in Business. Get involved with Billion Strong. We're both doing things to help. And it's very exciting to have female leaders give their time to us. So I want to thank you so much, Debra, again, for being on today's podcast.
Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Okay, so we're signing off from episode 64. Look out for Britt Lightning from the Women's Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp, who's also the lead guitarist for Vixen, as our next guest, and a lot of cool things coming up with Warrior Women in Business. Again, my name is Jasmine Sandler, signing off from episode 64, Warrior Women in Business.